Hey everyone, welcome to episode 17 of the podcast. This week's guest is Codi Musler, aka Local Living. She's made a big splash on the Vegas social media scene the last year, specifically on TikTok, where there are awesome videos covering Las Vegas, from popular spots to hidden gems and everything in between. Originally starting her IG account in April of 2018 with great food pics and candid shots, her work and presence online has morphed into a reliable source for people planning their vacations in Sin City, and also for locals who had no idea these spots ever existed. Many businesses have felt the reverberations of Codi's posts, with lines out the door for days to come soon after they go live. And with so much content around, the work that Local Living puts into her TikToks, for me, makes them stand above the rest, with slick transitions, great insight, and that unmistakable, unique voice that is Codi. 10 days after celebrating her 20K followers on TikTok in early February, she blew the doors off her account with her first Omega Mart post with 4.7 million plays and 1.1 million likes, and really hasn't looked back. Joining the podcast this week with over 184K followers on TikTok and over 9K on Instagram, welcome Codi, aka Local Living, to the show.
Hello. You always make those sound the best. I know everyone tells you that, but I'm like smiling and blushing. So I'm like, wow, I sound so cool.
You are cool.
Awesome.
What are you talking about?
Thank you so much. Yeah,
of course. But I think the biggest reason why I do the intro is for people who, there are people outside of Vegas that listen to this, and I really want to give them the best reason to tune in. So
yeah, no, that's fair. It makes sense.
Well,
hello to everyone, and thank you for having me film. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So let's go back a little into, your history. So you actually grew up in Vegas, born and raised. Yeah. Okay. And then you went to school at UNLV. Yep. And then what were you studying?
So I studied psychology with a specialty in neuroscience. So I wanted to go to medical school. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon or a psychiatrist. I know it's still a large passion of mine. I still wish, sometimes I would have gone that route, but favorite saying of mine is man plans and God laughs. So I am where I am because I'm supposed to be here. So yeah.
That's awesome.
It was really exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. And then when did you realize that medical wasn't going to be in the cards for you, or not right
now? I don't think it's going to be in the cards in this lifetime at all, which is completely okay. I've come to terms with it. I was obviously going through it in college, and I was president of my sorority chapter. And long story short, my sorority got in trouble. During my senior year, I was basically blamed for everything my chapter did. Ultimately, I was basically, they had to blame someone.
And you were the face and the leader of the whole thing. So.
Yeah. And so they blame me, unfortunately, with a bunch of other girls. There's a lot of girls that unfortunately got in trouble. But they blamed me. I wasn't at the location of the event that got us in trouble, but I was the president. So when that happened, my bio degree, which I was kind of trying to go through instead of having a psychology degree, I wanted a bio degree. And they found some of my credits to not be as valid. Basically, an advisor put them in wrong, I guess. And so they took those credits away. And then they took away my summer credits. And basically, I would have had to retake a bunch of classes. So during my final semester, I was like, I'm done with this. It was so exhausting. And so I switched to a minor of law and justice. I added it and took on the psychology major instead. And I wanted to actually go to law school because during the whole process with my chapter, I had to get a lawyer. And the lawyer ultimately told me during an appeal, I know this, I'm trying to keep it short, but during an appeal process with the university, the lawyer, after when I won it, she said, listen, you should go to law school. Like I don't think you were meant for medical. I think you were meant to be a lawyer. And I was like, okay, so I added that and I decided that, maybe that's the route I want to go in instead of medical. So I took the LSAT, and I also decided that wasn't for me. That wasn't where my heart was. Obviously, I wanted to go to medical school, but at that point, I had already graduated. I'm so sorry. And Wow, they just keep going. But basically, I know. Sorry, I'm so popular.
So I know. I'm having flashbacks of Paul's podcast where he kept on
Did you
digging
just keep
the
doing
entire
that?
time. Yeah,
I'm so sorry. But
that's all
yeah,
right.
so I was going after I graduated, I decided that, neither of those routes for me. And also during college, I did event coordinating. So I was in my chapter, I had jobs doing event coordinating, and I really thought maybe that would be the route I wanted to go in. Even though I didn't have an event planning degree or a hospitality degree, I was like, forget it, that's where I'm going to go. And I got a job right out of college, roughly doing events and coordinating them for college students, actually. And that's when I was like, this is maybe the route for me to go event coordinating or marketing. And now I'm kind of doing social media marketing, which I guess is where I'm supposed to be. And I hope to continue.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. How did you originally decide to start doing social media stuff for food and stuff like that in 2018? Why did you start?
So initially I wanted, I don't even think it was me who pushed me, actually. My friends and family, when I started driving, I was like the number one person to go to. Everyone was like, where are the local spots? Where should we go eat? What should we check out? And being underage in Vegas is so hard. So when I was under 21, I was like the go-to person. So like obviously like Pinball Hall of Fame, bowling, the GVR arcade we used to go to all the time, like movies and just random things, drive-ins. And I just kept finding more and more things. And then restaurants, when we started getting like jobs, when our parents weren't paying anymore, then we would find restaurants to go to. And my friends always just said, you know what, you should post this. And I think it was because they saw like Yugo and Happy Tummy, the Las Vegas Foodie, Unlocked, like all of you guys were posting. And they're like, Codi, you should do something like that. And we were in the donut bar in 2015, and it was the first time I had actually seen like influencers in the wild, I would say. And I saw these foodies behind the counter at the donut bar, and I was with two of the friends that have been telling me to do it for so long. And they looked at me and they're like, that should be you. Like, you should do this. And it took me obviously a few years after that of them convincing me to finally take the leap. And we were driving to Canyon Beach in Oregon, and I had taken pictures of our entire Oregon trip that I planned. And I came up with the name Local Livin'. And I was like, it'd be so fun to do a travel and food like Instagram. And so my first posts weren't actually food. It was like, I know I archived them now, so you can't see them, but it was like a waterfall picture of Charlie in front of a waterfall. And then there was some food, and there was some like pictures of the Pikes Market, I think it's called. We're in Seattle.
Yeah, Pike's
And
Place.
it was,
Yeah.
yeah, Parks. And so it was all that. And that's what I originally wanted to go for. And I came home and I told my friends they weren't allowed to follow me. They weren't allowed to like look at it. I was like, I did it because of you guys, but please don't look at it. I'm really embarrassed right now. Let me figure it out. And then it just started growing. And yeah, so I just did it on a whim and on a trip. And I'm so glad I did.
That's awesome. And then you were originally using a real camera primarily, right?
Kind of, sort of. I went to a few events and I used my phone, and I just wasn't very good at it. I couldn't understand the angles as easy as everyone else. And so when I got my new camera, that's when I started like really diving in with it. And I think my initial want for that was to be a food photographer. So when I got my camera and I started doing this, I was like, it'd be so cool to be a food photographer and do it for like magazines and do the whole spread and go to restaurants and do like the PR side of it for magazines. And it wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. So yeah, that's why I started using my phone again. So I was using a camera for a really long time though.
Right. I remember the first times we had shot at some place, maybe like 595 or something like that. I remember you were using a regular camera for a lot of the shots.
Yeah, and the pictures come out beautifully. I still love how they look. I think it's also the reason I didn't want to use it anymore was because people like in-your-face photos. And the camera on your phone just does that. When you can figure out how to take it properly, that, like all the foodies who use their phones know that. And it's so funny to try and explain that to a restaurant when you bring in your phone and they're like, these are going to turn out good. And you're like, just wait. Because once you figure it out, it's like, it's the better option sometimes. So
totally. And then it is interesting that, there's so many talented photographers doing amazing work, amazing editing, but as far as for the social media scene in Vegas, it just doesn't really resonate or blow up.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I
really
agree.
weird. And then so 2018, and you're doing IG for a couple years. You start TikTok maybe last year in July.
Yes.
All right. So
Correct.
how did you decide to go to the new to do TikTok?
The voiceovers, like how
Or
to
just generally, like you started posting.
Yeah, so I think I'm always interested if there's a new social media platform. I think that any person who is involved with social media obviously knows that we look for the next best thing. And TikTok was blowing up, but I felt the same way a lot of people did. I was like, this dancing platform, I do not want to be on it.
Right.
But I secured my username anyways, because I'm like, you never know. Like, you never know where this platform's going to go. And so yeah, I just got on it and started watching it. And I think when I started noticing there was more food things happening on the app, that's when I was like, all right, like you just need to post something. And so that's when I started like posting random stuff. And yeah, obviously I had a gap in that time frame where when I was posting that random stuff and when I actually had my first like minor blow up. And that was a huge transition for me. I think that I was watching what everyone was doing on the platform. I mean, that's why I initially started posting was because I saw other people posting and then mine weren't hitting and I was so confused why. I mean, TikTok in general is a very confusing platform. You post something that you've worked so hard on or you think is going to go good and then you're like, what did this just do? It just tanked in a better way of words. And I think that's why I took a break from it. And I was noticing voiceovers becoming popular, and some of the Vegas influencers like Tulls and Hooked were doing them. And I was like, I think I can do this. And so I told Charlie we were going to eat at the front yard, and it was an influencer invite for Instagram. And I was like, I'm just gonna try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? It tanks, and I never do it again. And it did fantastic. I think I got 125,000 views within I think a day and a half, which was really big at the time. And it
Yeah.
was funny because I thought 100,000 meant you went viral, which it kind of does in the city, like depending on how big your city is. I mean, that's
Right.
a pretty good amount of views. But I remember telling like my whole family, I'm like, I just went viral. I just went viral and having no idea what I was really talking about. Obviously, I didn't know what viral really was until Mega Mart, but yeah,
Right. But
yeah.
that's exciting. You took the break. You kind of came back with a whole new approach and
Mhm.
a whole new look. Charlie's voice in the beginning,
Yes.
AKA The Rock.
Yes. Oh, that's like the OGs know that one. That
Right.
is so funny. Yeah, and Charlie was a big part of that. I told him I remember sitting in the car because that voiceover I did in the car. That's why it's so bad. Because I literally edited it as we were walking to the parking garage from the front yard. I did the voiceover in the car and I was like, I have to post by noon. I have to post by noon. And I I was like, come up with something right now on spot. And that's what he came up with.
Oh,
And I was like,
really?
wow, you're genius. Like you're so
That's hilarious.
that was so good. And he was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's gonna work. Trust me. And then it got annoying after a few times because people started saying, can you get rid of that? But the, the first time he did it, it was fantastic. But on spot he came up with it. So
And then you finished the whole thing in the car.
yeah, I'm a really quick editor. Like I'm really good at like putting it together. I usually can film at a restaurant and have it edited by the time I'm home on most cases.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm pretty quick. The voiceover is the only thing that takes me so long.
Right.
And it's roughly just because I'm trying to figure out where I want to say things, how I want to say things, and that takes me a little bit. But the editing's super quick for me. Yeah.
I love that. And then with the voiceover, do you write it out, bullet points, or you just go off the top of your head?
It depends on the video. I find that once I'm super excited about, I can just like do it in no time. Like I can go straight into my room, record it really quick and be done. The ones that I'm like, I have no idea what to say about this. Not that it wasn't a good restaurant, just like I don't know what to really say. I don't know what's going to be catchy. Like maybe it's difficult to talk about for me as in like Mexican food. I get made fun of a lot by how I say things, so it's really hard for me to do a voiceover for a Mexican restaurant.